Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast or media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar stories and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, and the Shark. Today is our 135th episode, and we're discussing the 1997 Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys episode, Little House on the Primate. So, let's get things started.
Banana.
There's no better way to start than with that, of course.
Unfortunately, the actual leader of the bunch is not in this show.
Yeah.
We could have definitely used his singing voice here, but regardless. There were many attempts at copying Ninja Turtles Mania in the 90s, even well after the Turtles themselves had been canceled. Some were successful, others not. We've talked about a couple of them. See our Biker Mice from Mars episode for more info about that.
Yep.
But this show is one that's interesting because it is one that I personally had never even heard of before finding out for this podcast. And upon watching it, I actually really dug it. I really liked it. We'll get into more why in a little bit. But yeah, it's one of those shows that you can tell they weren't afraid to be creative. Not just with the concept, but also with the characters and with the setting and everything. It is so well fleshed out, you know? So basically the show is about the titular Captain Simian, who was basically a NASA space monkey who ended up landing on an alien planet and received intelligence. He ended up creating a crew of similar monkeys as they all traveled throughout the universe. And yeah, this basically is the Donkey Kong Country Star Trek spinoff we so desperately needed. And the other thing that's interesting is this show got a huge range of really great voice actors for it, several of which we're going to reference in the actual episode itself. But man, the cast they got for this show was really something else. But before that, go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, another thing you'll notice about this series, the animation is on par with stuff like Mighty Ducks, Gargoyles, and a bunch of other shows that were animated during this period. We're talking stuff that was animated in Japan, assisted by US stuff. This is absolutely A-tier anime for the most part.
Definitely. It really is such a well-made show in that. So basically, the show itself begins with the theme song, which begins with a shot of the ship. A theremin soundtrack plays to see Captain Simian, then the rest of his team, and right off the bat, any sci-fi show that has a theremin in it automatically gets a thumbs up. So right off the bat, this show is off to a really great start. But basically, the theme song plays with it being a mixture of both sci-fi and a tribal theme, as you see the team fight off various beasts, including the main villains, Rhesus 2 and Lord Nebula. The team all dramatically pose on an asteroid before Spidor smacks into it, causing the rest of the team to look concerned. And one thing I also love is that how the intro ends with a dramatic announcer saying, Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys! Which, I'm sorry, that's great. That's great that they did that, you know?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, one thing that they did not do in this show, we did not get to see Patrick Star team up with these monkey men and save the ninth dimension.
Because they have to fight the monkey man first, and they wouldn't help him against their own people.
Exactly. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, that dramatic intro is so good. It's basically the only way I do refer to the show when I'm talking about it. Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys!
Nice.
Perfect. Go ahead, Angron.
I absolutely love the intro as well. The music's great. The action's pretty good. It helps get across the animation and all that. And it also helps get across the characters as well, which is an instant win in my book when it comes to intros. My one gripe is the ending goes on a little longer than usual, even by the show standards. So unfortunately, it kind of gets points docked because of that. It's not bad by any means. I still enjoy it, but yeah, it kind of overstays its welcome just a skosh.
I can kind of see where you're coming from because it does last a little longer than usual, especially if you've seen more modern cartoon intros, how I like to keep things like tight. This does go on for like almost a minute and a half, but it's still epic enough to where I feel it works. It's trying to do that whole dramatic space opera vibe, and it works. It really does work. But the episode itself begins in the jungle as the team are all running away from an unseen figure that is chasing them. Gorilla, who is voiced by none other than James Avery, who, if you don't know, not only was he Shredder in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, he was also, more awesomely, Uncle Phil in The Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Sadly, we do not get to see Gorilla throw out Spydor like Phil would throw out Jazz. So that would have been awesome if they referenced that.
But I don't want to go into space and fight a weird bald guy with a nebula body. I want to conquer Earth.
Perfect. But yeah, what happens is he then turns around and screams in shock. Oh, before that, go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, plot twist, it is actually the Shredder after being affected by mutagen while he was near a monkey.
That makes sense, especially given what happens in the show proper.
Very could have been. But basically what happens is the figure chasing him turns out to be Spydor, who tags him. He runs off, telling Gorilla to catch him. Gorilla, meanwhile, tugs on a branch, causing snow to come out of it and cover the entire jungle. As the two continue to chase each other, Captain Simian tells Xiao Lin that this was not a good idea. She disagrees with him, claiming that, quote, spiritual well-being requires release of tension through physical activity. And basically, the best way to describe Xiao Lin, think of her as a cross between Tigress from Kung Fu Panda and Spock. That's basically the best way I can kind of describe her character here.
Yep, basically Spock with tits. Go ahead, Math.
So one thing I have always found a bit weird with this show is, and I would love to ask the creator of the show one of these days, why'd you make the female monkey pretty?
Because
I mean, look at Candy Kong, you know? I mean, it's not it's not out of the realm of possibility, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. There's also Shantae when she takes her monkey form.
Yeah. Also Kim.
That is also true. But basically, what happens is Gorilla finds that Captain Simian notes that he didn't see her playing, calling her goddess, which is a running gag, as she says that she doesn't need to play and swings off. Captain Simian then says that someone needs tension relief with a smug smirk on his face, and yeah, I feel like the staff writers were definitely shipping them in more ways than one.
I get it.
Yep. But basically, Gorilla then finds Spydor in the snow as Spydor complains that he is sick of the artificial jungle that they're in and he wants a real place. Doctor Splits the orangutan, voiced by Maurice LaMarche, so we got a legend right there.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. He says that they need a more suitable environment for recreational activities before his split personality Splitsy takes over and says, we need to hang. So basically, Dr. Splits, aka Splitsy, he's somehow both Dr. Zaius and King Louie in a single character. And the fact that they're both orangutans probably was not a coincidence. Go ahead, Matt.
So what I really like about this character in particular, Dr. Splits is your technobabble scientist character. And with technobabble, they usually need someone to explain that in real world terms so that we can understand that. And that's usually like a mechanic or an engineer that handles that, which Splitsy is the engineer of the group. So they literally handled the technobabble and explaining it in the same character. That's actually really brilliant.
It is. And the fact that Maurice LaMarche is able to switch from, his, James Mason-esque, Dr. Splits to the more fun-loving, cowboy Splitsy in a second, that is really great voice acting right there, It really shows how talented of a guy he is. But,
yeah, basically imagine if Dr. Bones from Star Trek had split personality disorder and was basically both Spock and Q, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. But basically, Captain Simian says that they're going to do that as they all go to their stations, with Simian telling them to have patience. Obviously, he is a big fan of the Guns N' Roses song, All We Need Is a Little Patience. Sadly, he does not do the Axl Rose shimmy, but maybe that's a good thing. But what happens is Gorilla asks what patience is, as Spydor jokes, I'll tell you later. And then we get probably, for me, what is the funniest joke, which is Gorilla angrily yelling that, I want to know what patience is now! Now! I'm sorry, that actually got a really good laugh out of me, Like, this show isn't funny, like, I'd actually say, like, Ninja Turtles probably did better comedy, but when it is funny, this show really knows when to hit it,
Yeah, it's also funny when you listen to it in Shredder's voice, but I want to know it now! Also, Shark, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that it sounds almost like that I wanna conquer Earth moment from him.
I know, right? Get used to that being referenced multiple times. Also, Math.
So this is why I have talked about this show several times. The writing in it is actually surprisingly good. It really holds up and stands up as one of the higher ones. This is why I don't view this as just a TMNT clone. This show should have held out on its own and been regarded as one of the best of the 90s, and it just disappeared, unfortunately.
Kind of a shame when that happens. But we then cut to Lord Nebula's ship, where he's complaining about being uncomfortable. Lord Nebula is voiced by Michael Dorn, aka Worf from Star Trek. Rhesus, too, voiced by none other than Malcolm McDowell, suggests a more comfortable pillow, but Lord Nebula says that obtaining the anti-force will ease his pain and manage to remove all obstacles in his way. And yeah, this is the next generation / Clockwork Orange crossover I think the world has been waiting for, you know? Didn't everyone want to see Worf and Alex interact like this?
No idea, to be honest.
And another note that I never thought I'd write, Rhesus rips his brain out and polishes it, as he then says that the space monkeys could be of use. Lord Nebula ponders this, then demands that Rhesus gives him one of the brains of the space monkeys. Rhesus sarcastically remarks, "Why didn't I think of that?" as he walks off. Lord Nebula demands a brain, then bumps his head on the ceiling, adding that he also needs a pillow. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, Nexus is one of those weird cases of a cartoonish character having one of the most darkest underlying things about him. Like, this is a guy who actively takes out his brain. Multiple brains, might I add. We'll get to those later, but every time I see him take out a brain, rub it, touch it, or like have anything happen to it, I'm just like, yikes. Like, good lordy, this is darker than it needs to be, and like I'm just looking at this. Okay, maybe tone it back a little bit. I get for cartoonish flair, but like that is a headache just waiting to happen. Yeah, Rhesus too.
Yep, go ahead, Matt.
My favorite recurring thing about this character is that basically every other sentence is some kind of brain pun. So I have to believe that the way that this was done is they told Malcolm McDowell, okay, this is your character makes a lot of brain-style jokes. How many are you okay with? And Malcolm McDowell just said, I'll just say whatever comes to mind.
Clever. But basically what happens next is, we then cut back to Captain Nebula's ship, as Dr. Splits points out that they are near two galaxies, QB6 and QB7. Orbitron appears, and I said Orbitron, not Orbulon, although a WarioWare crossover definitely would be a welcome here. So yeah, Orbitron, the little floating disc, comes into view, and he claims that it pays more in mutual funds, which, okay. Simian notes that QB6 has more planets, but Shaolin notes that QB7 has more suns, which increases the possibility of finding inhabitable worlds. Simian says that QB6 is closer, but Shaolin says that QB7 is warmer. Spidor tells them all to stop arguing before, quote, "I'm too old to hang out." Haha. Simian then tries saying that they're going to go to QB6, but he's cut off by a glare from Shaolin. And it's here where we get to why we're discussing this episode, because we cut to another ship as Commander Gril is told about the differences between Galaxy's 401J and 401K by her second-in-command. Now, what's interesting is her second-in-command is voiced by none other than Jeff Bennett, yet another really, really great voice actor. Like, say what you will about this show, they got Johnny Bravo himself, and yeah, say what you will about this show, they really, really got a great, great voice cast. But Commander Gril is a Quellian, which basically are lizard-like aliens with ape heads on them, which is why we're discussing them on this podcast. So they don't exactly have like the lizard snout and anything, but they have the body, and that's close enough basically for me that they are like visibly lizard aliens, just like human faces and that. Oh, go ahead, Shark.
Yep. Again, if you guys did the Mario movie with the Koopa Hattans, I think anything really goes here.
Yeah, we pretty much abandoned that early on in the show's lifespan. Go ahead, Matt.
Let's be fair, we're reusing this as a justification to talk about the show.
Yeah, yep. We have done that multiple times in the past.
Yeah, I will say this about the Quellians. They look all right. They're not too bad, and they work for the context of the show, especially given that they're microscopic reptilian aliens, which reptilians do count, in spite of looking more human than reptilian. But yeah, that justification, loose as it is, doesn't really excuse the fact that, yeah, their design-wise is not as unique as other things. I mean, they're semi-unique for the show itself, and unique as far as being the first reptilians we're ever going to talk about. But yeah, I'm sorry, they just do nothing for me. Or at the very least for us as well.
Commander Gril demands that they go to 401k no matter what, as the second-in-command just walks off. Their ship enters a wormhole, just as Captain Simian's ship does the exact same thing. Simian's ship leaves the wormhole, as Dr. Split says that the galaxy has plenty of oxygen and few inhabitants. Spydor is ready to play, pulling out a variety of sporting equipments, but Captain Simian asks about a nearby planet. It turns out to be covered by a blue jungle, as Splitsy says when he changes back from a Dr. Splits to Splitsy. Captain Simian has them land on the planet, where we cut to Spydor swinging through the trees. Gorilla picks up a flower and says that it'll be great for his collection, and at least he's not collecting golden bananas, because we know how difficult that could be.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Captain Simian tells Shaolin that it's not that bad of a galaxy. She, meanwhile, notes that both options were valid, but he had to disagree with her for her own satisfaction. We do get a really good gag here where he says that, "I don't disagree with you," only for her to stare at him for a couple of seconds in, bemusement. He continues to argue that he does not disagree with her as she swings off, and we then cut back to the Quellian ship as the second-in-command tells Commander Gril that they are not in a suitable environment for their people, as they fly over what appears to be a brown field. Commander Gril, meanwhile, says that there are no other inhabitants and this rich, dense forest, which is perfect for their people, demanding that they land. We cut back to Gorilla and Spydor, as Spydor notes how tranquil it is. And of course, he then immediately begins making plans on how to colonize the planet, with hotels, water parks, kiosks, and all the like. Gorilla asks what kiosks are, as Shaolin basically tells them that not everything they find is theirs. Spydor retorts with the Finder's Keeper's rule, then pulls out a flag with his face in it and plants it on the ground, calling it Spydor 2, which, a quote from that one episode of Ed and Nettie can apply here. "You've had that the entire time?"
Yep.
Like he's been holding around this flag with his face in it, just in case they happen to land on an uninhabited world. Go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, I like the little the parallels here because we have both crews of both respective ships ultimately having their captains disagree with their second in command, even if one is a little more prideful about admitting it than the other. Hi, Captain Simian. But yeah, I also like that both have found their respective home worlds, or at the very least their current base of operations. But it happens simultaneously, one being on the blue planet, while the other is basically happening on freaking Spydor's butt, let's be honest. It's honestly pretty funny. Anyways, Math?
I like to think that the people in this show follow the Eddie Izzard rule of imperialism. But do you have a flag?
Nice. That's great. So, yep, cut back to Gril planting a flag on the surface, calling it 1215. We then cut back to Spydor as he leaps up and claims that something bit him. We then cut back to Rhesus flying his ship as he tracks them down, having racked his brains to do so, as in another really bad pun, we see that he literally has his brains on racks, which, yeah, that's not the most gruesome thing that's going to happen to his brains in this episode. Let's do it.
Be warned.
We then cut back to Spydor getting examined, as it turns out he thinks he has a rash. Splits points out that it turns out to be a, quote, rash of civilization, and Splitsy notes that you got campers on your keister. Spydor leads up in shock as Captain Simian notes that they are building a city. Gorilla jokes that Spydor will get his hotels after all, as Splits notes that they are draining resources, but then Splitsy claiming that you're getting stripped more than a Buick in a chop shop. And like we said earlier, I do like the Splitsy personality thing. That really is a fun dynamic, and the fact they got such a good voice actor like Maurice LaMarche to do it is really, really the tops. Go ahead, Shark.
Well, if they really want to live in a really good place or a really good guy, they should try living on Eduardo from Foster Home from Imaginary Friends.
Also, yeah, Split 100% is a great source of comedy. His serious, calm, logical explanation, off the walls, blunt as hell explanation is honestly some of the best writing in this show, hands down.
Oh, easily. But what happens is Captain Simian says they have to get rid of the aliens, as Spydor suggests a fly swatter. Shaolin says the aliens are fellow life forms and must be respected, with Spider saying, "What about respecting my monkey butt?" Another quote I thought I'd never have to say, but regardless. Captain Simian asks about any ideas, as Split says they can introduce themselves to their colony by using the molecular modifier, but it could be risky. When Captain Simian asks how risky it could be, he uses it on a coconut, which causes it to explode. And obviously, it was the coconut itself that fired in spurts, not the coconut gun.
Nice.
That guy got hit in the head by a coconut!
And
it made a golf noise.
nice. But basically, a baboon arrives and talks to them in an impression of Columbo that, is there the slightest possibility that they can explode? As Captain Simian says that there's a chance they will have to take. Now, the baboon is one of the, quote, hollow boons, and these guys were holograms who, basically their function was to be like the red shirts on the original Star Trek, and that they basically were just cannon fodder, and the running gag is that basically they imitated different celebrities with each and every episode, kind of like what they did with Nigel in Godzilla the series, with the exception of the episode we talked about of that last week. But I digress. I do like how the Columbo baboon holds the banana like a cigar. That's a cute touch they didn't have to put in. Go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, a little bit of a dark tangent though. If you recall from the opening, you see Gorilla open airlock and send 3 monkeys out there, like one of those red shirt things, and it just ultimately made me realize they might have accidentally killed some of their initial crew doing that, and those holograms are there to give the illusion that they're a bigger crew than they currently are, which dark stuff. Like I said, the show does not shy away from that, if that's true. If not, then it's just a funny hologram gag.
Spydor says that they will not do that, as Captain Simian points out a corner on the floor. When Spydor looks down, the others teleport themselves onto his body. Most of them land okay, except for Gorilla, who crashes to the ground. He notes how different Spydor looks from this angle, as Shaolin says that they all do there. The group then begins walking as Gorilla cuts through the forest like hair. The Columbo baboon mentions that there's something that's been bothering him, as a white ball appears and runs him over, causing him to disappear. And yeah, the fact that they're holograms means that they basically managed to kill these guys in every single episode. Kind of like, again, like Godzilla the series with Nigel the robot. Because he was a robot, or because these were holograms, they could destroy them in horrible ways in every episode. Of course, thankfully the Columbo baboon doesn't go out too violently because Columbo is awesome. Oh, go ahead, Shark.
Well, if they were trying to copy the Ninja Turtles, that makes sense. The Ninja Turtles made their bad guys robots, so they could kill them as well.
The white fuzzy ball runs him over as the rest of the group leap on the ball and roll along with it. And, man, this is a weird adaptation of Super Monkey Ball, isn't it?
Kinda.
But Splits analyzes it, and it turns out to be a ball of lint. Shaolin prepares the vine she can prepare no matter what, as they all leap off of it, only for electricity to strike their feet as they land on a new surface. And in a really clever touch, it turns out that it's Static Kling from his uniform, as Captain Simian and the rest of the team use their ray guns to get them off of it. And again, this show has really clever writing, even something like that not a lot of people would think of. The fact that they did it is really cool. I also like how their ray guns are really just phasers from Star Trek colored a different color, you know? When they get off, the rest of the group are being held up by the Quellians. Spydor asks if they're there, as Captain Simian says that they have a problem. Spydor says that he does too, as see him being held up by Rhesus too. We then cut to Captain Simian telling the Quellians that they are not there to cause harm, as Commander Gril asks why they are there. Shaolin says that they are trespassing on their crewmate, as Gril's second-in-command tells her that Galaxy 401J would have been better. Gril argues with him that this planet is fine, as she is then captured by a giant flea. Obviously, they heard what Patrick Star said. We've had nothing but itching, and pain, and fleas, and fleas and itching and pain and lots of pain. Had to reference that one.
Nice.
Shaolin attempts to throw her rope around the giant flea, but is knocked off. The other members of the space monkeys all begin attacking it as Captain Simian asks her a suggestion. Shaolin sarcastically remarks that now Captain Simian is looking to listen to others where he wouldn't before. Captain Simian, meanwhile, is thrown off the flea as Shaolin and the second-in-command of Commander Gril fire on the flea, causing it to run off. Captain Simian and Gril all thank the others for saving their lives, as Shaolin mentions that they have to save Spidors. We then cut to Rhesus's ship, dragging Captain Simian's ship along, as Rhesus says that he is taking Spidor to Lord Nebula to have all his secrets. Spidor says that he'll spill his guts to no one, as Rhesus says that he doesn't want his guts but his brain, basically ripping out his own brain and smashing it on the floor. And as I said earlier, Rhesus has a really, really dark design for a kid's show. It's like, I don't know if they could even do that today on a kid's show. Like, even so, like Steven Universe, they weren't like ripping out their organs and like smashing it, you know? Even stuff like that. It really is something that it feels like this was made just at the right time where you could have this kind of thing on a children's show. But go ahead, Matt.
I think the thing that makes this character work so well, for how dark it is that you can hear Malcolm McDowell chewing every bit of scenery in the recording booth. He loves this character, acts like it, and that's why this works as well as it does.
Yeah, a little too much by the looks of things. Again, things he does to his brains are pretty messed up. Like, I get he has fallbacks and he can somehow still function and think without them. But, yeah, still pretty edgy for a kid's show. Based off the turtles. Anyway, Shark.
Yeah, but honestly, the whole brain thing is not as bad as the constant things that will Mojo Jojo will show happening to his own.
That's true. And yeah, that's another monkey who has several brain trauma. And yeah, if you haven't seen Powerpuff Girls, go back and watch the original seasons because, wow, they got away with a lot. They got away with a lot of stuff there. But getting back to this, what happens next is that Rhesus then says that since he stranded the others on the planet, or at least he thinks he does, he rhetorically asks, without their ship, how far can they go? Spidor sarcastically remarks that, you'll be surprised. We then come back to the space monkeys and the Quellians, all packing up things in the latter's ship. Captain Simian remarks that he understands their concerns, but not at the expense of his crewmate. And one thing I will admit, having Commander Gril basically admit that she was wrong is another neat little bit of subversion here. It's one of those things where in any other show, she'd be like, no, we are right, we're going to take over and that. But the fact that she actually sits and listens patiently to him, I give him credit that is another bit of good writing there. Her second-in-command notes that there's always 401J, as Spidor then talks to Captain Simian, as the captain says that the Quellians are going to relocate. Spidor basically sarcastically remarks, so is my brain, and tells them about Rhesus kidnapping him. Captain Simian says that they're on their way, but with the molecular modifier breaking due to the static electricity in the clothes, that it's not going to work. Captain Simian then tells them it's going to take a little longer, as Spidor yells to them to hurry up before Rhesus will spread my brain on a bagel. I do love this bit. Gorilla getting so worked up and screaming, nobody will spread Spidor's brain on a bagel. Like, he treats it so seriously and gets so enraged. It is so funny. And it reminds me a little bit of Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. It makes me wonder, was James Gunn subconsciously aware of this show? We can only speculate. And of course, as Luigi would say, or is it the bagel?
Nice.
But Gorilla basically hulks out as Spidor realizes that he's going to do it on his body, trying to calm him down by frantically singing. I do like the gag of Rhesus seeing him basically running around his cell, singing to himself, and he says, wonder if I should have brought 2 brains with me. You know, just in case, like, how stupid Spidor is looking at the moment. Gorilla continues to grow large enough basically to get off of Spidor's body and smash through the ship. And yeah, this is Gorilla's power. He basically has the ability to, he's basically Gorilla Hulk, you know. He gets angry, he grows giant and enraged, and they have to like cool him down and that to get him back to normal. And yeah, it's one of those things that is such a cool power, and again, it's so obvious. Why has no one thought of this before? It's like, the Hulk and King Kong, mixed it together. Why has no one thought of that before the show? But he basically then roars loudly at Rhesus before he can attack. He then shrinks back down to his, shall we say, normal size at that moment, causing Rhesus to head to Spydor's cell and interrogate him about the giant gorilla. Spydor claims that there was no gorilla, as Rhesus says that he saw one. Obviously, what happened is they're wondering, hey, what's a gorilla doing in outer space? Well, you see, George, they're onto us. Let's get out of here. And they all fly off in a flying saucer. But Spydor then retorts that there is something wrong with Rhesus's brain, and Nebula should remove it. Rhesus then screams, "No, not again," in fear, and rips out his brain, holding it close to him. And yeah, like I said, this is really, really dark stuff for this kind of show. I give him all the credit in the world for that. But anyway, we then cut back to the space monkeys on Spydor's body, as Splits tries to fix the machine but doesn't have the right screwdriver. Captain Simian asks Xiao Lin for advice, as she says that, quote, "A flea can move a donkey, but a donkey cannot move a flea. However, as we know, a donkey can move a dragoness."
Yep.
Nice.
He just has to make the waffles.
Exactly. But Captain Simian doesn't understand what she means, as Split says that their small size can be used to their advantage. Captain Simian then realizes that they can use it to defeat Rhesus, then asks Gril for their ship and their help. We then cut to the space monkeys flying off in the Quellian ship, with Gril and the second in command with them as well. They pass Spydor's body as he is chained up. The ship is then sucked into a fan and is nearly shredded. Basically, Gril wants to destroy the fan, but Xiao Lin says that, quote, "A warrior uses both sides of the blade." Captain Simian then gets the idea to reverse the fan, as Splits agrees. Gril then says, and this is a direct quote, "Make it so, number one," and yet another Next Generation reference. And again, I am surprised they did not let Nebula have that line, considering he's voiced by Worf. Regardless, what happens next that they reverse the fan and get out of there, as Gril compliments Simian. Simian says that it's all from listening due to all points of view, as Shaolin smiles at this, and we learn the lesson of the episode, which, again, it's a little more subtle than a lot of shows of this time period would do,
Yeah. It's definitely one of those moments that is a little bit of a slow burn that you sense is there. It strikes even at the last moment, and that's pretty neat.
What happens, they reverse the fan and then they get out of there. The ship then flies by Rhesus, as Simian decides to play mind games with Rhesus. He appears on the view screen as he greets the villain. Rhesus calls him, quote, Captain Zippy, and says that he would have destroyed him, but in another bad pun, "It didn't cross my mind." Simian then says, "That's what I'm doing right now," as the view screen turns off. And how they basically defeat Rhesus is really, really dark, because they basically fly into his brain and zap it with lasers, causing him to leap up and shock and scream. And again, this is way darker than I thought they would defeat him. My first time watching this, I actually had to put my jaw on the floor, because, man, I was not expecting them basically to, let's defeat the villain by giving him brain damage. It's like, oh, okay. They zap him so much that his brain ends up short-circuiting, but no, he does not turn to Johnny Five or Steve Gutenberg, which is a missed opportunity right there.
Absolutely made my brain actively tingle with how much that looked like it hurt. Like,
what happens next is that 3 guard robots arrive, as Captain Simian and Gril manage to blow off the heads of the robots, cause them all to fall to the ground. Rhesus sits there completely inert, and in another really creepy moment, another brain slithers off the table and goes into his head, causing him to be revived yet again. And wow, like I said, that too is imagery that is really, really dark, again, for this kind of show. But what happens next is, now that Rhesus is awake, he then says that your operation won't wait, as he approaches him with a chainsaw arm. And I guess that means he is now Ash Williams. Gorilla basically tells Spydor to be patient, as Spydor jokes that, in 2 seconds, I'm going to be an outpatient. Simian, meanwhile, gets an idea and takes over Gril's controls, using it to zap the chains. Rhesus then pulls out his ray gun and begins firing it in various directions, knowing that Simian is there somewhere. And the ship manages to dodge the laser blast because it's so small, as Rhesus continues to fire wildly, making holes in his ship. Basically what Captain Jack Sparrow said about the Black Pearl. Stop blowing holes in my ship! He then accidentally manages to hit the self-destruct button, which of course caused the ship to self-destruct. And I will say this, at least Patrick didn't hit it this time.
Nice.
Yep.
Or Doofenshmirtz.
That too. Rhesus rips out his brain and throws it against the wall, then shoots it. Yeah, you know the drill by now that this is really weird imagery in that. But Shaolin asks if this is part of Simian's plan, as he says that it is now. Oh, go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, like it's just so casual how like he is going to destroy his own brain. Like, does he have a spare around, or it's like a minor bother? But like, yeah, it's just so. Oh, I'm just gonna reopen my head and do this.
Exactly. It's one of those things that you really would not expect from this kind of show, but, you know, I'm really glad they did, if only for just sheer, like, what the fuck value, you know? But
Yeah.
what happens next, basically, is that Shaolin asks if this is Simian's plan, as he says it is now. Splits tries to beat against the machine, as Spider says he is afraid of what's going to happen next. Eventually, as in 2 seconds later, Splits manages to get it working again, as Spider is shrunk down to the same size of the others. They all manage to escape before Rhesus's ship explodes, with him screaming "Bad Brain" over and over as it explodes. We then cut back to the space monkeys and their ship, as Spydor thanks the others for saving him. Captain Simian and Shaolin bid goodbye to the Quellians, saying that they will find a home someday. Gorilla said that they need patience as well as to be a lot larger. The Quellians bid them farewell and leave, as the space monkeys use the molecular manipulator on themselves to go back to their original size. Gorilla, of course, misses his new friends, while Spydor is glad to be rid of them. Splits, meanwhile, says that he misses the blue planet that they were from, noting the freedom of the habitat. However, Captain Simian says that with Rhesus and Nebula out there, it is the safest habitat. Shaolin says that they will return to Earth one day, as Gorilla wonders where the Quellians went. Simian says that they will go somewhere out there, as it cuts to them landing on another surface. Gril says that this is Quellian 16, but her second-in-command corrects her, just calling it Quellian 16. And it turns out they landed on Rhesus's body, as the episode ends with him leaping in pain and shouting. And yeah, that's it for this episode as a whole. Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys lasted for only 1 season, and as we said earlier, it really seems to be forgotten, and after watching this show, it really seems unfair because the animation for the 90s is really, really good. The whole premise is really creative. The violence is incredible, and just the characters and the voice acting is so intricately done. It really, really is something else, you know, just how well they managed to do this, you know? They really, really managed to make a great show, and it got canceled after 1 season. Apparently what happened, spoiler warning for like a 20, 30-year-old show at this point, is that Lord Nebula apparently dies in the finale, aka the probably cliffhanger finale. Yep, Lord Nebula, Rhesus basically gets sick of him and kills him, and he's going to take over as the big bad. And it sucks that we didn't get a second season because I would have loved to see something like that, you know? There is so much you could have done with it, and they just didn't. It's something else, you know?
Yeah, they basically pulled a Duckman like they did with the Zeta Project. Like, good lordy, leave us in suspense, why don't you? But at least follow up.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've said this about several shows. This is one of those kind of shows that just, for whatever reason, only me and like 5 other people seem to know about. And I tried to sell this show everywhere because it is so fun. It is so enjoyable, and people just need to know about it. Make it popular again, and hopefully that'll be like, oh hey, maybe we can actually get a wide DVD release or something, or maybe we can actually do something with this for once.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things. Maybe it aired in like syndication or something like that. It aired on like 6 a.m. or something, because it's weird how just to show this premise being this forgotten is so strange, you know? But like I said, definitely would like to see more of this, whether it be like some kind of continuation or even just acknowledgement of it would be awesome. But regardless, that's going to lead to the question of the week, which is going to be, what is your favorite space opera? I'm going to go first, and mine is probably going to be the most, there was a classic of the answers. Now, I could say Star Wars, but that would be the most generic answer, and we'll have to see about that. For my answer, it's going to be something that we kind of sort of talked about in a roundabout way earlier, and it's going to be the original Flash Gordon serials in the 1930s, which, are they dated? Yes. Are the effects somewhat corny? Yes. Is it like dated with a depiction of Ming the Merciless? Somewhat? Yes. But, man, you really can make a pinpoint from Flash Gordon to pretty much every single bit of science fiction that came out after it. And I'm specifically talking about the serial film starring Buster Crabbe, because what happened is it basically tied in with the same thing with the adventures like Tarzan and things like that. And Buster Crabbe was an Olympian champion, and the stunts he did in Flash Gordon were real. Like, there's a part where Flash Gordon gets electrocuted by Ming, and to do that, how they did the effect, Buster Crabbe was actually electrocuted.
Oh.
Yeah, it's one of those things like they had no safety back then. Stuntmen did crazy stunts and they got paid like maybe 10 cents. Of course, Crabbe got paid more because this time he was actual a character rather than just a stuntman, but still. It's really, really well done. Like I say, it's really, I feel what it is, it's just so creative, and you can make a direct link from Flash Gordon, the serials from Universal Studios, to every single bit of science fiction after, because without Flash Gordon, maybe we don't get Destination Moon in 1950, which means we don't get Forbidden Planet, which means we don't get Star Trek, which means we don't get Star Wars. It's really all intertwined and interconnected, and it really, really is something else. And the fact that they actually use scores from the Universal Monster movies also help, because some of those scores were great, and they actually fit the Flash Gordon mythos pretty well.
Yeah, it's pretty much the Dirk Gently's Everything is Connected thing all over again.
Basically, yeah. And Flash Gordon, for those of you who don't know, is a man who ends up being sent into space with Dr. Zarkov and his daughter, and they end up going to planet Mongo, which is threatening the Earth because Ming the Merciless is the evil dictator. And they actually made 2 sequels to the Flash Gordon serial because it was so successful. Flash Gordon's Trip to Mars and Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe. And yeah, they also are really, really good. Conquers the Universe was made on a much more limited budget, but at the same time, it really is a lot of fun to go back and watch them because it's not the greatest. And is it dated? Yes, very, very much so. But consider the fact it was 1936. Like, it was before even color film was a thing. And the fact that this wasn't even a feature film, this is a film that they had to film in parts and chop it up, because of how movie serials worked. It basically was like a TV show in a movie theater. Like, part 1, is Flash Gordon going to Mongo. Then at the end of the episode, he's dropped in the pit, and you have to see, come back to the theater next week. How's Flash Gordon going to get out of the pit? And they did that every single week. And as, of course, they said in the Stephen King movie Misery, I saw him, he didn't get out of the car. I had to reference that. But yeah, it's one of those things that I guess the reason I like it is, number one, it still is really well made for 1936 when you think about it. And number 2, it really is just fascinating just to see where so many things were taken from. I mean, you could really make a direct statement that Star Wars is a lock, stock, and barrel, almost a knockoff of Flash Gordon and also the Hidden Fortress, the Japanese film. But you really could say it's those 2 movies combined into one franchise. But yeah, there's only going to be my pick is the Flash Gordon serials. And the 1980 movie it's fun, but I don't know. It just is missing something that the serial is not, Like, I feel like the things with the serial, they played it earnestly, and that's what makes it work. The 1980s movie, I feel like they winked a little too much in the camera to it, It was just a little bit too much. With that being said, Brian Blessed as Voltar the Birdman was amazing casting, and so was Max von Sydow as Ming. He did a great job too. But yeah, that's what I'm going to say is that the Buster Crabbe Flash Gordon serials, which had Charles Middleton, who, the funny thing about him, I'll get off this in a second, I promise, is that he was the villain in Laurel and Hardy movies, and here he is doing like a sci-fi villain, and he is the template for pretty much all evil villains in science fiction, and that's definitely going to be my pick. I babbled about it probably enough, but yeah, that definitely is my pick, the Flash Gordon serials. Matt, Angron, what would your pick be?
That's going to be a little bit tricky because I kind of have 2 that I really want to talk about. The first, Mighty Ducks. I have watched the entire series, and I can safely say that in spite of some of the 90s cheese and whatnot, I still think it's definitely worth a watch. It's fun. It's one of those things you just shut your brain off to and just enjoy. Yeah, the whole thing where they were trying to push the Mighty Ducks as their own thing semi-worked. There hasn't been much about the show lately, but it has inspired me to think about a few things that could be done with the series. But I do also like some of the characters, one of which being my personal favorite, let's be honest. And also the fact that it's a little more grounded compared to my next pick, but they still go into space, they still fight aliens and whatnot. It's by all means a little space show. Also, and it does fall back on a few cliches that have not exactly passed the test of time, but it's not done in a way that's completely overdone or offensive. So, yeah, there's that. However, my second one, is a little more of a space drama, and is the only thing. Okay. One of the only things of Star Trek that I have ever had the pleasure of sitting down and watching in its entirety. And that would be Star Trek Lower Decks. Yeah, pretty much taking the entirety of Star Trek and Seth MacFarlaning the shit out of it was a very clever move by Paramount without actively, Seth MacFarlaning the series in general. No cutaway gags. Yeah, no cutaway gags, no repeating gags. The material's fresh, and yet it still finds a way to take itself seriously in that regard. And I love it. They make nods to so many of the Star Trek series in general. We're talking Next Generation, the classic series. Hell, even some of the more obscure stuff and not so great stuff, like the Packlids, the freaking Klingons, like adding so much character while also just making fun of it and having a blast while doing it. Everyone's in on the joke. And yet, again, they're still taking it seriously. I freaking love Rutherford, Tendi, Mariner, Boimler, like, good lordy, this one freaking ship, the Cerritos, has so much more character compared to stuff like Enterprise and whatnot. Like, it is that impressive that, as much as I did make an exception because Mighty Ducks, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do both. I love Mighty Ducks. I just love Star Trek Lower Decks a bit more.
Yeah, no, I definitely see what you mean because again, there's so many good things with Star Trek Blue. Like original series is great, Next Generation is great, Deep Space Nine is great, Voyager, Enterprise, no, and I haven't kept up with any of the new Star Trek, so can't talk about them. But yeah, original series, Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine are all really, really great, and I recommend them. And yeah, like I say, Mighty Ducks is one of those things we're going to be talking about in the future. Wink, wink. And yeah, it'll be interesting when we talk about it, just to talk about how unique the premise is, shall we say, because they went places, man. They really, really went places. But that's going to be a really, really good pick. Matthew, what would your choice be?
So for space operas, I'm a huge like Star Wars, Star Trek fan, all that jazz. I was thinking for a long time on this because I didn't want to go with those series that you have to watch 5 different shows and 10 different movies to get into. What is a good, concise space opera that you can just like binge in one sitting, has 1-2 seasons, very digestible? And I finally realized what my favorite space opera in that very easy to watch frame is. Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys!
Of course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is so entertaining. It is so fun. What makes it really work and why I love it as a space opera, they take it seriously. The voice cast in this is just completely in that actual sci-fi mode. They aren't just yuck yuck. The titular Captain Simian himself is such a good Kirk. Zhao Lin is a great Spock. Dr. Splits and Splitsy are so good as your scientist and your engineer. All the characters they get into their roles so well. The characterizations are great. They understand what a kind of show like this needs to be. They add in humor because, well, kid show obviously, but also taking jabs at the tropes of being a space opera while being a legitimate space opera in and of itself. And I will keep saying this until I'm blue in the face. This show needs to be in the public consciousness. It needs to be brought back. It was so good, and it is a shame that no one knows about it.
Yeah, it and Mighty Ducks need more attention, especially with the animation and a little bit of a time capsule-ish nature to them, since they're products of their time, but each brings something to the table that definitely is a little interesting in hindsight.
Exactly. As I was going to say, I think this is the first time that the question of the week answer has been the topic we discussed. Man, like I say, it definitely something that should happen more often. But
Yeah.
Shark, what is your pick?
Okay, so when I heard about space opera and I honestly didn't really know what exactly it meant, so I searched it up, and it's basically an adventure in space, some media that takes place in space, and yep, the answer became very clear, and I actually talked about it before. Super Mario Galaxy! Woohoo!
Mario Galaxy! Woohoo!
Yep, that woohoo was really great as well.
Yep.
But yeah, like these games, I mean, what can I say? Like, oh boy, okay, from the concept alone, like, yeah, let's take our famous Red Plumber and make a bigger adventure in space, and let's have explore like all these creative worlds, or these planets, make him fly around, and it's like, yeah, I mean, that alone, it's great. Like, yeah, we have like Mario on some mountains, some snow places, a tropical island, so sure, why not? Let's take our plumber boy to beyond and all of that. So yeah, and then of course the gameplay is so fun. The anti-gravity mechanic was, well, it was not unique. It was done before, but they clearly mastered it there. The spin attack, they make a lot of use of that. The power-ups, and of course the music. Good lord, the music in that game was so good. One of the first times they use a full orchestra for Mario music, and it's like, yeah, it's clearly made an impact on in the franchise because, well, it got a sequel. We got Super Mario Galaxy 2 because they said, yeah, there's a lot of potential for this. Like, we couldn't just keep it in one game. We have to make a whole other game for it. And yeah, it shows because Mario Galaxy 1 and Mario Galaxy 2 are tied as my favorite video game ever. I can't just decide which one of the two is my favorite. So they are pretty much tied for that spot. And boy, and it's clear Nintendo is really proud of that because Galaxy stuff is one of the things that gets brought a lot in future Mario games. Like, surprisingly enough, not much Odyssey stuff was brought through after the main Odyssey game. Mario 64, we have the characters, but like the locations, you don't see them often. And Galaxy, you still see it today. Like, not only Rosalina, but like, take Mario Kart World. There's a course based on Mario Galaxy as well. And some Mario parties have Mario Galaxy music. So yeah, that game it's just something you never forget. You experience it once, and it's like, oh boy, this is one of the greatest gaming experience I ever lived through.
That is a great choice right there. Because again, I love the outside thing, like video games. I never would have thought of that, but yeah, Mario Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2 are such a fantastic games, and maybe we'll get a Mario Galaxy 3 on the Switch, but Switch 2 rather. But keep our fingers crossed about that because, man, it really is such a great choice right there, you know? Because it's a lot of fun. It's a great thing. It gave us Rosalina, one of the best Mario characters. And yeah, as a whole, it really is a fantastic choice right there. And like I say, really hope we get more with it later on. Well, now it is time the patent pending Dragoness Scale. And this one's going to be interesting because we're ranking a character Commander Gril, who is a Dragoness, but only technically, because of the whole ape face thing. Now, with that being said, because with the whole ape face, with that being said, I like the character. I like what they did with her. The design, I actually like. I think giving her the ape face it does kind of work within the context of the world. It does work. I know what they were trying to do with it. They were trying to keep them similar yet different. And for what they were trying to accomplish, I think it worked. And yeah, Commander Gril, I'm going to give her a 6 out of 10, which seems low. But the only reason I'm doing that is mostly because I kind of wish she had a little bit more to do. I do like they gave her part with the climax. You easily could have kept them off the ship entirely, but she doesn't really do anything. I mean, she helps save them from the vent, the fan vent, but at the same time, she feels kind of like a third wheel in a way. And I get what they were going for there. I really, really do. And especially with the design, the voice is great too. She's a great voice actress. And yeah, as a whole, if she was just in a little bit more of the episode, or if they gave her a tiny bit more character. Now, with that being said, I do like that they actually did give her some character, rather than her just being a generic, like a no-nonsense commander or that. The fact that she was willing to listen to Captain Simian and all. So, yeah, it's really not enough to change my score, though, so I'm probably going to stick with a 6 out of 10 for her, which is a lot higher than I actually thought when I first saw her design. But once I watched the actual episode, it was like, oh, I get it. So, yeah, that's going to be my pick right there. It's going to be a 6 out of 10. Angron, what would you give her?
I'm gonna go a little bit lower, like 5 out of 10. I definitely agree. Yeah, she was mainly a linchpin for us to talk about this show. I do admit she does do a fair amount. She is somewhat of a parallel foil to someone like Captain Simian, which definitely, you know what, it bumps her up just a little bit, but I will say this. Yeah, she is kind of a nothing burger. She's basically there to just be part of the moral and help out the space monkeys to try and ultimately avoid getting captured by Rhesus 2, the freaking psychopath that he is. But yeah, she's getting a 6 out of 10, but that's because she works in the context of the episode, not really much else.
No, I understand what you're saying. Like I say, if they just gave her a little bit more to do, it would have worked. But
yeah,
regardless, I definitely see where you're coming from. So let's see, Math, what would you give her?
Apparently, we're keeping the 6 train rolling.
Wait, oh crap, no, 3 sixes. Oh my gosh.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can rectify that. Go ahead, Emmett.
So I like the overall body of the Quellian race. That they have a nice design to them. I particularly the parts on the back of the spikes on the back of their feet that act like heels. The overall concept of the alien is great. The issue is the face, which is, I think, why this show basically never had any lizard-like creatures. They kept to predominantly mammals. The art style doesn't work that well with lizards, so that's why that brings that down. And then the other thing is, like, she is a decent one-off character, is the best way I can describe it. She's effectively there to help bring the moral of the episode. So you see it from her perspective and from Captain Simian's perspective. But that's basically it. She's not too much of a character. What little we get of her, nice personality, nice voice, very well acted. Like, there's nothing really to complain about. It's just that there's not much here to go with. This is one of those characters that, again, we're just being frank. We're using this as justification to talk about the show.
So yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from there. And let's see, Shark, what would you give her?
Probably gonna be the one that gives her the hardest time, because I'm gonna break the train and give her a 5.
Okay.
The main issue is, well, yeah, if you never told me she was a dragon or dinosaur adjacent, I would have never figured it out. Like, I will see her and be like, oh, alien, and call it a day. But, well, the design itself is really not that, like, memorable. Well, memorable no, but, like, impactful for me. But I do like a bit like the character, like, oh, she could have, as a one-off, she could easily be not flat character, a random background minion or something like that, but no, they did give her a personality and stuff to do, so I'll give her points for that, but other than that, there's not so much, so yeah, 5 out of 10.
Okay, yep, that definitely works out. So 3 6s and a 5, pretty good score there. So that's going to be it for this week. If you have any questions, Or if you want to see a Columbo Baboon spin-off show, you can feel free to email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Be sure to subscribe to the Fiery Discourse YouTube channel and subscribe to the playlist. Like and hit the bell icon. Leave a comment. Any all comments are appreciated. Also, one of our co-hosts, Lucky Evie, is looking to move to a group home in the UK. That will also be in the description. Any and all help for that will be appreciated. Next week, we're going to be talking about the 2015 comic book, Ivar Time Walker Issues, Ending History Part 2, Part 3, and the finale. Definitely going to be a lot of fun. Another comic book this year that's 3 more than we've done in the previous years. And yeah, it's going to be interesting because we've done Marvel, we've done DC. Now we're going to go a little indie here and see if they can give us really good female dinosaur. And spoiler, they might. They really, really might. But we'll have to wait and see about that. So that'll be it for this week. And until then, thank you all so much for watching and take care.
It does.
So.
Bye.
Adios. See you all next week.